Eastern, Sundays 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. It's Friday on the show. Oh, my God. What a week. What a week. But you know what? We do impossibly have more news on post-event press conference fights and violence. But believe it or not, it's not with AEW. It's with UFC. It's the UFC show tomorrow, and you'll never guess what happened. Fights, brawls, the whole 9 yards. And in the end, nobody got suspended. But anyway, I'll tell you about that later on today. But we got a lot of news to get into pro wrestling-wise as well. We have got a lineup for SmackDown coming up tonight. We have got a multi-person elimination match to determine who will face Liv Morgan for the title at Extreme Rules. Of course, the return of Braun Strowman and more. Dynamite ratings. I don't know really what there is to say about the Dynamite ratings. They're good, but of course, they were going to be good. And the question is, how will this continue on over the next couple of weeks? I actually predict that it is very likely that we are going to have a string of 6 straight weeks of 1 million plus, because I think they may break 1 million all the way through the Arthur Ashe show. So we'll talk about that here today. We've also got the estimates for the All Out show, how that did in terms of pay-per-view buys. We have got Bobby Fish challenging CM Punk to a fight, and a lot of stuff going on. Bobby Fish talks about a match where he wrestled CM Punk. Punk gave him a GTS, and he kicked out, but it was the finish, and it was weird. And I got a little bit of information on that, but plenty to talk about here today. We'll take your feedback as well, 425-780-7566. That is 425-780-7566. Dave Meltzer joins us, second segment of the show. Mike Sempervive after the break, Observer Live.
there, everyone. While we take a quick break, I have another trivia game for you, and this time I'm going to go ahead and quiz you on how well do you remember All Out 2021. Let's play. Question number 1. How many title changes did we see at All Out 2021? A, 0, B, 1, C, 2.
Back at the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. I just want to mention, we don't talk a lot about UFC, but Saturday's UFC pay-per-view, UFC 279, headlined by Nate Diaz, Kazmat Chimaev, final fight of Diaz's contract. Typically, any press event that features Nate or Nick is a must-see, it says here in terms of promotion. Issue started when Kevin Holland, who was fighting, and Chimaev after they had been chirping each other on social media. Chimaev walked up to Holland, which led to a skirmish, and Chimaev landed a front kick. Then Tiki Gosen was one of the people who helped separate the two, which caused its own issues. Members of Diaz's team thought Gosen was aligned with Chimaev, began yelling at him, throwing water bottles at both Gosen and Chimaev's team. The agent was also apparently slapped and kicked during the exchange. Dana White attempted to salvage the media event by bringing out 6 fighters in pairs, but then just decided he was just going to cancel. So they canceled the press conference. We had what Dana White described as a, quote, I don't even know why he said that because I can't even say what he called it.
Show.
But it was bad. And no suspensions, no firings, nothing. But the show is still scheduled to take place tomorrow. However, who was it?
Where's the show at?
Who cares?
Well, because if this was Nevada or something, I would assume, wouldn't they have some sort of investigation? Can there possibly be a holding up of some of those fights? I doubt it would happen under the circumstances, but it's
Vegas.
It's the Diaz brothers.
Vegas.
It's the Diaz brothers.
Yes.
Hey, and look, if this brings any revenue in at all, if this brings any extra attention or eyeballs or extra play on SportsCenter, let me get to my point.
It's
worth it.
There's more to
this. Sorry, go ahead. I thought you were still struggling.
Well, no, of course I'm not struggling. Who do you think I am? I'm a professional. So now on top of all of that, man, time is a circle. Is that what they say? Time is a circle?
Yes, flat circle, yes.
Well, now the Chimaev-Nate Diaz fight is in jeopardy. Why? Because Chimaev misses weight by 7.5 pounds.
No! Does he want this fight? Did he want to fight?
I every now and then I hear like, Bryan doesn't care about UFC anymore and he barely watches. And you know what? You're right. Because I gave up on this a long time ago. Between the weight cutting and all this, it's like, whatever, dude. Who cares? You miss weight by 7.5 pounds. Who cares?
We lived through a lot of generations of this, and a long time ago, I was nailed by a lot of MMA people for saying at some point, the way this is going, the way Dana wants it structured, and the whole 9 yards, it'll be boxing. And oh no, we'll never make the same mistakes that boxing has. It's all pretty much the same thing.
Well, we could talk about some fighting that has to do with pro wrestling, because Bobby Fish has challenged CM Punk to a fight. He challenged him a couple days ago, and now he has more. During an interview with NBC Sports Boston, released Friday, Bobby Fish believes that CM Punk's martial arts-inspired offense is, quote, insulting the audience's intelligence. Talked about an October 27, 2021 edition of Dynamite, where Punk and Fish had a match, and Punk hit the GTS. Fish appeared to kick out as the ref was counting 3. Punk was declared the winner regardless. Phil is not a bad pro wrestler, but what Phil is not is a martial artist, Fish said. I've been doing martial arts since I was 8 years old. I take a lot of pride in it. He is a pro wrestler, so go out, tackle, drop down, leapfrog, get it again, all that stuff, all good. In that lane, dare I say, he's got talent. But when it comes to martial arts, you're insulting the audience's intelligence because we are supposed to be creating an atmosphere where you can suspend your disbelief. It's honestly insulting for you as one of my coworkers or peers. As a martial artist, you were asking me to go out and sell, put over your martial arts, which is insulting to the audience. It is insulting to me. I'm trying to read this without reading all the profanity. Phil, after the match, was a naughty word. Frankly, as a martial artist, I went out and I laid my shoulders down for you. You should be grateful that I did, because on national TV, if I decided I wanted to haku your ass, I could have, because you're that little bit of a threat in my world. I'm not John Jones or Anderson Silva, but I've been doing martial arts since I was young. I can handle myself enough to know where I will fold you like a wet nap, Phil Brooks. So for you to be catty...
Where was this Bobby Fish promo?
Because of his mistake that you made, it just doesn't wear well.
What?
Not to mention, he says, he's got more.
Damn!
The move that he finished me with, it's not even his finish, it's Kenta's. You know, Phil, you took a man's finishing move, which anybody who knows pro wrestling knows that's kind of a effed up thing. You weren't even decent enough to change the name. I think Phil kind of showed the world kind of scumbag he is. Maybe he's not that scumbag every day, but I guess we all got a little bit of scumbag in us, and some of us do a better job at controlling it than others.
Oh!
I got a little information about this.
So, I wonder what he thinks about Eddie Kingston using the Tiger Driver 91 then. I mean, my God. Where was this promo all these years?
So,
oh, my God.
all I can tell you is this. Bobby Fish has disliked CM Punk for a long time.
No
It was
kidding.
not just he got upset this weekend. So something happened in that match that has stuck in Bobby Fish's craw for months.
You
and
sure it
months
wasn't
now.
before that? If he
Now,
kicked out there at 3?
I'm a fair man, okay? I'm a fair man, okay?
All right.
Bobby believes that the screw up in that match was all CM Punk's fault, okay? Now, as an outside viewer, CM Punk hit the GTS on Bobby Fish, and Bobby Fish kicked out at 3. As a viewer, I have no earthly idea how this was CM Punk's fault, okay? But Bobby Fish claims it's his fault.
Because he hates him.
Well, all I know is he really, truly, honestly believes this is CM Punk's fault. He got in trouble, and it wasn't his fault, and he hates the guy. So maybe someday he can do an interview and explain why him kicking out of the GTS was CM Punk's fault, but that's his story. So
That's a man who wrestled Lincoln back in the day. So he's got a lot of seasoning behind him when it comes to his martial arts. Do you want to, never mind. I don't know if we should be endorsing Bobby Fish to talk too much, though. At some point, I don't know. It's a lot of fun and games right now with making fun of Bobby Fish's age, but I wonder if everybody would be happy if Bobby Fish just ran off at the mouth all of the time.
Hey, dude,
about all
if he
sorts
could
of
cut
subjects.
promos like that, I'd hire him back right now if I were Tony.
Well, if you talk
Needs to be
about
cutting
wrestling,
those promos on TV, not on.
hey, if that's the kind of
NBC5
promos he wants to
Boston.
cut, no, I mean, hey, look, he's still going to work the indies. You know, he wanted to do that kickboxing fight. This is a way to keep his name out there and up there, so I can't fault him at all for it. He's got a free reign to do this and the opportunity to, so you got to go ahead and take it.
So tonight on SmackDown, we've got the return of Braun Strowman to SmackDown. Fatal 5-way elimination match to determine Liv Morgan's challenger at Extreme Rules. Ronda, Sonya, Natty, Xia Li, and Lacey Evans is back.
Really?
Yeah, repackaged, whatever that means.
Again?
For all I know, it could be the exact same deal. Maybe she'll be the Southern Belle with the umbrella, who's also a Marine, who also... Remember that when she had 9 gimmicks all at once?
Yes.
And then we've got the Street Profits, Hit Row, versus Maximum Male Models and Los Lotharios.
Thank God for the Lotharios and the Street Profits.
Kind of a
From
little
a
bit
wrestling point of view.
I'm sad I'm not going now. It's in Seattle, but
It is.
yeah, timing didn't work out today.
Nah, look, you've been on the road a lot here recently. Be home with your family, get 20 more kisses tonight, and just relax and watch it on TV.
After the break, Dave's going to join us, so we're going to talk about the Dynamite rating, as well as the estimate for the buy rate for All Out on Sunday, which was between 135 and 142,000 buys, which is down substantially from last year, but I think that what's funny is everybody was predicting about 145,000 buys. So it was not going to do what it did last year with the first match back of CM Punk. But anyway, back in a moment with Dave, Observer Live.
The answer is 1. Out of 4 championship matches, only 1 changed hands, and it was for the AEW World Tag Team Championship, in which the Lucha Brothers defeated the Young Bucks. Question number 2. Who wasn't in the Women's Casino Battle Royale? A. Ty Conti, B. Chris Statlander, C. Jade Cargill, D. Rebel. Out of the following names, the person not in the Casino Battle Royale was Chris Statlander, because she challenged Britt Baker for the AEW Women's World Championship. Question number 3. How many surprise debuts were there? A. 2, B. 3, C. 4, D. 5. The answer is 4. We saw the AEW debuts of Minoru Suzuki, Adam Cole, Ruby Soho, and Bryan Danielson. Question number 4. What was the opening match of the main card? A. Moxley vs. Kojima, B. The 10-man tag, C. Miro vs. Kingston, D. Jericho vs. MJF. The correct answer is Miro versus Eddie Kingston. As always, thank you guys so much for playing. I hope you enjoyed this quick trivia video. And if you haven't already and you want to chat some wrestling with me, feel free to follow me on Twitter and or on Instagram at _Denise Salcedo. Now back to Wrestling Observer Live.
Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Obviously, fallout from All Out. Dave Meltzer joining us here today. We've got a Dynamite rating to talk about and the estimated buy rate. But Dave, obviously the important question here is, who to win in a real fight, CM Punk or Bobby Fish?
That's a good question. I don't really worry about stuff like that, but I did see Bobby Fish's comments, which were, I always think it's funny because it's like it doesn't matter at all. You know what I mean? And usually when guys talk about that, they end up getting themselves in trouble, like Matt Riddle when he said he would win a real fight with Roman Reigns, which he probably would. I mean, he's trained as a real fighter, not a football player, but whatever. It doesn't really matter.
Now you're really going to be in trouble.
I know.
You picked
I know.
sides.
I probably got Riddle in trouble just by saying that.
All right. Well, let's not get anyone in trouble. What did you think of the...
we're going to get people in trouble for sure.
Well, yeah. Dynamite, 1.035 million on Wednesday, a 0.38. And obviously there was a lot happening on this show, so it's no surprise the show did well. But it is the third straight week over 1 million. And we do have a tournament going on where a world champion will be crowned on TV.
Right. Over the next 2 weeks.
I think this streak might continue a few more weeks. What are your thoughts?
This week number didn't really mean anything to me one way or the other because there was so much stuff. I think the main thing to learn from is how much all of this stuff meant. And it meant something, but it didn't mean like game changing. Like I'm still trying to figure out what the angle is that Real Housewives did because they were like way, way up from usual and they actually beat AEW. I'm just trying to think did something happen backstage in Real Housewives that
maybe
we didn't
there was
hear
a
about
fight? Who knows?
Yeah, it's like did they have like some Josh Koscheck and Chris Lieben thing going on that I missed? So anyway, next week's number I actually am kind of intrigued by to see if they stay over 1 million. That's a really good sign. If they stay, in that, over 0.35, it'd be excellent next week. And obviously the New York show should do really well. I mean, you're going to have, Moxley against either Danielson or Jericho in the main event, and it will be for the championship. And there'll be the acclaimed tag team title match, which to some people should be a real big deal. That's more of an insider thing, but the acclaimed are very, very over right now with the AEW fan base, and them going for the title in New York is pretty good. The thing is just not just is that match probably going to be good, but the key to that is if the acclaimed wins, that may be like a really great reaction. I mean, we just got the thing with Garcia this week in Buffalo, but this would be that same thing that we got, but much bigger. So, I mean, those kind of moments are really cool in wrestling. Unless it doesn't happen, I guess, but I think it will.
That's all right. Action Bronson coming out to rap. He and Hook's entrance is going to make the day for everybody there, surely.
Well, we also have the estimated buy rate, 135 to 142,000 buys, which obviously is way down from last year, but I think most everybody predicted something in this range for this show.
It was a little lower than I expected, but not appreciably lower. The one thing I think is pretty clear is that the really good AEW buy rates, aside from the one that Punk drew last year, are really like cards that are really, really deep, and also like matches that are announced ahead of time. Like if you think about like the one that like the Revolution show this year, which was actually the biggest one of the year. That show was loaded with big matches. Way, way deep, with and a fantastic show. This one, it was like the main event came together on the Wednesday before the show. The trios match came together on the Friday before the show. And I think you just need, I understand why it happened. And he had a lot of timing. There's problems with timing. Guys were hurt and couldn't come back earlier. And it just like, that's what happened. But it was not a perfect scenario to build for a big buy rate, I guess, in hindsight. I think we did learn that, announcing the show the Wednesday before probably is something to be avoided if at all possible. There may be times due to injury where they have to do it again, but it's a good thing to learn from. That don't do that one again.
Yeah, it's certainly not a cataclysmic decline or anything like that. Although
it's not a disaster.
No, not at all. I thought it was going to do 150 around that or a little bit more than that. So I guess it's a little bit of a surprise. But I know he's really. Obviously, the move from WWE to move NXT, that sticks in his crawl. I'm not sure what else does, and I completely understand that. But do you think that it's just a matter of the build, which obviously you mentioned, and I think that was an issue too, but also the economy and some other factors too, more than anything about WWE? Because I know he's pissed, and I know he went off about that both on the show with you and Bryan and after the press conference, but. It just seems like a show at 1 o'clock on a Saturday in England and then an NXT on at 4, which was a short card. It's hard to blame that more than, to me, the economy and the build.
Well, the build is the number one factor, but you can't throw out the other one either. People are only going to watch so much wrestling in a week, and there were people who were going to choose Clash over that for their weekend. So, it had something to do with it. I don't think it was a giant difference. I think that the NXT, I don't think that. Put it this way: if Paul Levesque felt it didn't, that NXT show's not on that day. It was on that day for that specific reason. So they felt that, and the idea of burning the audience out that's a WWE marketing ploy going back to the 80s, going into a market and you run the show the night before the WCW pay-per-view and run a long show, and then people just are tired and don't want to go or don't want to buy the pay-per-view the next day, and in the case of running, right before, and it's like, I just can recall, just as an example, at my house a couple weeks ago, not that long ago, I think it was Forbidden Door night, but it was one of the AW pay-per-views, and there was a UFC pay-per-view on at the same time right after, and everybody was going to stay and watch both. And when the Forbidden Door was over, it was like everybody was going to stay. It was a big UFC show. And then it was just like, oh, we're tired. We watched a show, and nobody stayed to watch the UFC show. So it does. It is
well,
a factor.
yeah. If you remember that press conference, I mean, when CM Punk was doing what he was doing, I mean, I'm sure inside Tony was like, but outside he just sat there and listened and everything like that. But the one time he visibly got angry was when talking about the competition. And, I mean, he really went off about how I'm not going to stand for this, and he essentially kind of admitted, like, I expect the show to be down because of all of this competition.
Yeah, I mean, if there was no, it was booked for that reason. I'm not saying Clash. Clash of the Castle was probably booked. I mean, Labor Day weekend was part of the strategy, and I think that it was, like a small part of booking it was the AEW show. They could have done a different weekend. I think that it was part of it. But I mean, the NXT was 100%. So it's like Levesque thought that was the case. That's why he did it. Tony thinks it's part of the case. It probably is. I've been around people. I've seen the burnout. Even when you plan to do it, once you've seen a show, I mean, Brian, you do this all the time, as do I on Saturdays. Like when there's 2-3 shows a day, after the first one, even if the second one's a great show, we're not so hyped about watching a second show on the same day. Even if that was our plan and we knew we were going to do it, if we didn't get paid for this, so to speak, we probably would go, you know what, I've seen a show this weekend, I'll watch again Monday night. I mean, that's just, there's a reality to that.
Yeah, human nature, you get a lot more picky that way, for sure. And I have a question for you, really, and it doesn't cause you to get in Tony Khan's head. And, Brian, this is to you, too, because I know, obviously, he's been through this rigmarole before, but right now the NFL season is starting. The Premier League is in full gear here. And you have this big show. With all this going on, what has been kind of his mindset in the past? How do you know he keeps things? How does he stay as level as he does and try to manage things in the way that he does? Can you kind of can you get in his head a little bit, I guess, really, when it comes to this?
I have no answer because I don't know how it's possible. He does it, but
yeah.
I mean, it's like I used to think like Vince had a lot of responsibility, and believe me, he did. Or Dana had a lot of responsibility, and he did. This is the guy doing the work of 3 of those. How can you do that? I mean, thank God he's under 40, because when he's 55, there's no way he's going to be able to do this workload, I don't think.
Well, you say he's doing the work of 3 guys, but it's actually kind of 43, because Vince at least had 40 writers that he could...
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's like, it's. I mean, obviously, for a long time, I mean, I've said that thing. It's just like he doesn't want to delegate. He thinks that if you do, people stab you in the back. He talked about it in our interview. But man, I just don't know how anyone can work that much on so many jobs and be good at all those jobs. I mean, it just seems. But I mean, really, AEW is doing well. I mean, it's not doing as well as it was 1 year ago, but it's doing well, all things considered. Especially because the competition is much tougher right now than it was a year ago.
And he has made a step by putting a buffer in place.
Several
at least with some people, yeah. So there is that.
Well, obviously, the top story in the Observer is all the details on everything going on backstage. The fight Sunday, the press conference, and seems to be very quiet today. I guess we're just waiting until
team meeting. Yeah. I think there's really nothing left to say. I mean, obviously the details of what really happened, are sketchy, but I'm sure that more will come out when the investigation's over. I'm sure. But until then, I don't expect anything more to come out, and that's the situation.
All right, well, Dave, I want to thank you for doing the show today. Obviously, the new Observer is up on the front page of WrestlingObserver.com, everybody. If you've been kind of hanging out and reading this, that, all in one place, you can get the entire story of this past weekend. So check it out, WrestlingObserver.com. Sign up today. There's thousands of back issues. We're at 14,000 archived shows at this point. So check it out. And that's it. Back in a moment with more Observer Live.
Alrighty now, one of my most favorite games to play during these commercial breaks is the word scrambler, word unscrambler, whatever the hell this game is called. Let's unscramble some words. Today's category is AEW wrestlers. Whose name is this? The answer is Angelo Parker. Next one, whose name is this?
Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com.
Uh-oh, you seem amused.
Oh, God, I almost said a bad word. Listen, okay, I'm not saying that you should only listen to us here at Wrestling Observer, okay? There are other valid news sources out there. But, bro, dude, why do people listen to every rando on the internet saying every stupid thing that comes into their head? Why? Why do you post it about, oh, did you hear this? Why do you do that? Like, again, it's not, you don't just have to, oh, here, sign up. I do want you to sign up for Wrestling Observer. I would like you to sign up for video.f4wonline.com. We try to do our best. But, like, if it ain't going to be us, then find a credible news source. Please. That's all I ask. I've seen some of the stupidest, I'm talking the stupidest stuff God.
Really? Did you?
Oh,
hear
no,
one
no.
about
This
you?
had nothing to do with me.
Oh,
Just,
I heard one about you.
oh, yeah? What's that?
Well, that you were a little pissy afterwards, and you were a little pissy after getting shown up by all those people, Killer Kelly and Filthy Tom. So you decided to go after Phil, and you went and you chopped down the damn door. That's what happened. You actually chopped down the door to go after CM Punk and started all of this.
You know, it is funny that I just remembered a second ago is, did I mention that I was ringside for that show this weekend? Did I mention that?
What road you sit in?
Ringside, you idiot. First row.
There you go.
Okay. Now,
Not like your 3-back.
listen, there's a reason I'm bringing this up again. So after the main event, CM Punk was victorious, and he does his promo or whatever. And then this is after the MJF stuff. This is after the show goes off the air. Punk does his promo. And everyone's kind of starting to leave. But old Phil, CM Punk, I don't know if he likes to be called Phil. I don't want to cause any trouble. But he rolls out of the ring, and he starts going around ringside. Fist bumping everyone, covered in blood. And I'm sitting there at ringside, and he's making his way around. And I mentioned this when I did that little speech about how I was a little upset with him about that old press conference. I did mention that I thought that he did a fantastic job in that match, and I still do. Shattered foot, having to be in shape to any degree, having to be able to work a long match, not knowing if your foot's going to hold up. Him and Moxley I thought they did a fantastic job. And so he's kind of coming around ringside, and he's fist bumping everybody, and he gets in front of us, and I just said, "Man, I thought you did great." And he just looked at me like he suddenly realized who I was, and he looked at me for a while, and then he just kept going. And I didn't think anything of it at the time, but now I'm like, did I trigger this guy? I didn't, okay? I didn't, because I can tell you, and it was out in the Observer, and I can confirm that he did alert people to watch the press conference a while ago, not day of the show. This was something that he was fixing to do for a while there.
Is Nick Hausman a hero? If Nick Hausman would have said, yeah, I'm still cool with Scott, then that would have been... then he could have started, firing across everybody, I guess, because he seemed to be thrown off by that fact and then just went into a generic rant against Colt Cabana.
Well, he had a lot to say, and he had a lot that he was prepared to say. And I think he was expecting certain answers, and maybe he didn't get the answers that he got. And, I've said this before. I mean, I can understand the things that he was angry about from his perspective. But I believe that his perspective on certain things was wrong. I think that he clearly thought that this Nick fellow was best friends with Colt Cabana. And he was caught off guard when he heard, I'm actually not. I haven't talked to the guy in years, or whatever he said. I don't even remember. But, he clearly, he had ideas about what I said, and he had ideas about what Nick said, and he had ideas about... the big one is he had ideas that, the Young Bucks were leaking everything to the media, and that was not true. I mean, listen, obviously some people did leak things, but it wasn't the Young Bucks, and that was in his mind. It was like, this all came from the Young Bucks. That's why he was so mad at the VPs. This
has consumed him. This is something that he obviously has not come to terms with at all, and I know he's getting poked, but you're going back into a locker room situation. You just don't get in there. You're not a deity. You can't just snap your fingers and make everything happen the way that you want to. And you know yourself that you're an obstreperous prick. You know how you are. So to forget completely about the fact that there's a lot of people that work for that company that talk to their friends and talk to other people and surely leak things intentionally sometimes for whatever reasons, usually... for whatever reason, and you're consumed with Colt Cabana, his mother, and these guys doing it to me. again, there's an investigation going on that is going to flesh everything out, and there's a third party that is involved because that's what big boy corporations do. That's what you have to do, is bring in somebody from the out, much like WWE. You bring in some new eyes to look at this whole thing, as well as your own legal and human relations departments. Everything is going to come out that happened, and it's just going to take a little bit of time, which is not going to stop anybody from doing their fan fiction, and it's not going to stop anybody from, well, blaming you.
Well, such is life. I got more news. Shall we move on?
Yes.
Shall we move on to other stuff? I'd be happy to. Actually, I don't have any other news.
You sure?
I'm out. Because I looked through again. That's really all I was going to talk about here today. So, text messages, 425-780-7566. That is 425.
Is your chest still sore?
Well, actually, I was also kind of looking at the chat here, and there's like people that write the weirdest things. Like, does Bryan have a history with Jamie? Who's Jamie? Jamie who? What are you guys talking about? And then they're saying, like, the big feud is Bryan versus Jade. Bryan versus Jade? What are you guys talking about? Sometimes I don't know what's going on.
I'd like to wrestle Jade.
Oh, yeah?
I would.
Yeah. I don't know.
Potato me.
I've been potatoed enough by women this week.
It's true.
It is true.
It is.
Yeah, man.
Did she? Never mind.
Bryan versus Hayter. What happened with Jamie Hayter? What have I ever said about Jamie Hayter except that she's very talented?
Yes. Would you wrestle Jamie Hayter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would too.
Actually, I wouldn't wrestle anybody anymore. I'm done. But if I were in my prime, I sure would. Yeah. I'm happy that everybody liked the match on Friday, but I was not in my prime. I'm an old man. I felt so much like what's his face, Luke Rockhold.
Oh, I thought you meant CM Punk. He's old, he's tired, you work with children.
If they would have had a mic, I would have grabbed that thing and I would have cut the same Luke Rockhold promo.
I'm surprised Filthy Tom didn't grab the mic and do that Brock Lesnar promo from one of his first UFC wins. Who was it, against Mir or whatever it was? Oh, man.
Let's see what we got in the mailbag here. Otherwise, I can just ramble on if you guys want. It's Friday.
It is.
Who do you crown at Arthur Ashe as the world champ? Fans seem to want Danielson, but would Mox send more of a message to the locker room about leadership? Well, Tony likes stories, and unfortunately, this is now a new story that he had not planned. He never planned for Moxley to be the champion this summer, but Mox tore it up. Now, he's got a championship match here at Arthur Ashe, and what do you do? Because you're obviously, you're going in a different direction. But I think the keys here are, what story do you want to tell with Mox or Danielson or Jericho or whoever's the champion? And I would presume that whoever gets it is going to be the person who's going to feud with and put over MJF, okay? So given that Jericho and MJF had a long, long feud, my guess is they're not going to go back to Jericho and MJF. Could be Bryan Danielson, MJF. But you know what? Given everyone's respective personalities, Jon Moxley and MJF is a feud I really want to see.
It's all that matters.
But
too many words.
But fans know one thing. Fans know that Jon Moxley stepped in this summer and he carried this promotion on his back when Punk went down. And they also know that he put this guy over at All Out, and then this guy threw it all away. And so, I feel that fans really want to see Moxley get his belt back. And sometimes when fans really want to see a guy get the belt back, you don't just give it right back to him. It becomes a long story. And Tony Khan likes long stories. So I would not be surprised if, in fact, Moxley did not win the title. Perhaps Bryan Danielson wins the title, and then you do Bryan Danielson, MJF feud, and MJF eventually beats Danielson. And then long down the road, maybe a year or more, Moxley is the guy that ends up saving the company from MJF and winning that title back and getting his. So there's two ways you can go, and I don't know what they're going to do, but I do think that everything's going to be all right.
I would think so. And man, Bryan Danielson, right there, like Jack Briscoe. And that's nice. That's good. But as we move into a different era, and obviously Bryan Danielson is doing what he's doing, but MJF is Ric Flair, right down to having the same type of fan base that is going to be tough to go into places and not have him get a significant portion of cheers. And you have Jon Moxley. Sometimes Jon Moxley's offense doesn't look that good. Jon Moxley, to a lot of people, doesn't look like a professional wrestler. There's always that thing, the Cornette Plumber thing on him, all that. Bottom line is people have chosen Jon Moxley. The people know how hard Jon Moxley works. All of that is legitimate. He's the most, much like Eddie Kingston, I always say this, put them together in this, they're the most relatable people in professional wrestling to me. It is a no-brainer that this company, at some point, even if you give it to Bryan Danielson, and I'd be fine with him coming out of the tournament that way, MJF and Dusty, and to me, MJF and Jon Moxley is your Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair. And I think they match each other, again, physically, not looking the same, but the same vibe, same spirit. I think they got it right there. I think that's the easiest answer. As Bryan is angrily responding to the chat right now.
This was non-chat related. But, I do have a potential booking scenario, which I like myself. So, as I mentioned last night, this MJF thing is weird because if his deal is really up at 2024, I mean, this is like ribbing on the square is not the proper term, but, bro, Tony Khan's building up a bidding war that he very well could lose. I'm still, befuddled by this. So, if I were Tony, I would re-sign MJF right now, quietly, through 2028 or something like that. Throw some money at this guy. But the storyline is still that he's out of here in 2024. So he doesn't need to win the title right now, but eventually he needs to win the title, and he needs to carry the title into 2024. And I'm not sure about this whole wanting to take the title to the other company thing, but it looks like they're doing that. So if that's the story you're going to do, he's got to be on his way to taking that title to WWE, but Mox takes it from him at the last second. And then he's so angry that Moxley screwed his plans up that he re-signs so that he can end Jon Moxley's career. You wrap up all your stories. You don't go anywhere.
I like it.
Back in a moment.
The answer we were looking for, Griff Garrison. And can you unscramble this name? And the answer for this one was Michael Nakazawa. Who can this be? And the answer we were looking for here is Jamie Hayter. Last one, whose name is this? And for this last one, if you guessed Time Mellow, you are correct. These are always a whole lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for playing, and I'll see you on the next video. Back to Wrestling Observer Live.
Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of Wrestling Observer. I might have done some serious damage when I pounded my chest right there. I'm still all bruised up from this weekend.
Ouch. Did you need Neosporin rubbed on there? Did he bust you open?
No, I had this. He busted me open on my arm. You ever see that? Yeah, that's
Yay.
still not healed. He chopped my arm. Get with the program, buddy.
If you were other people, you may have to be out 9 months with a triceps tear.
It's not like I don't have a big target right here, huh? It's not like this. He missed my whole chest and chopped my arm.
Well, wait a second. I think he actually hit your whole chest, but because it's a small chicken chest, he was able to actually, with the tips of his fingers, cut open your arm with his nails. I bet you that's what happened there.
It was ironic.
He's filthy.
It was ironic that in preparing for this match, I watched Tom and Zack Sabre Jr. and learned that, in fact, of the two of us, I now am the one with the chicken chest. But, you know, I'm fine with that. Guy looks a lot better. He looks great. It's heavier than filthy now.
Damn, is he really?
Yeah, not in there some stick man doing these goofy holds. Now he looks like a killer.
He's still going to choke you out.
No,
He doesn't
not.
forget.
It's done. It's done.
You're going to need Bobby
He had a
Fish to offer
chance to choke me out, but he
protection
decided,
to you.
I'm going to yank his stump instead. That's what he decided. That was his call. Fine, buddy. Go for it. You yank my stump. I'm not embarrassed. I've had worse things happen. Not many, but I've had worse things happen. Yeah. Hey, do you
This
know...
is the longest 2.5 minutes.
I can go on and on, dude. I can go on and on. Don't think I couldn't spend 4 hours talking about my stump being yanked by Filthy Tom. I could. But anyway, we're out of time. I want to thank you all for listening here today. Be back later on with more. Sign up at WrestlingObserver.com. If you like this show, let me tell you, you'll love a subscription. WrestlingObserver.com, video.f4wonline.com, Wrestling Observer Live.